It's now May of 2020, and while the world is still being shook by the substance that shall not be named, there is but one question on many a gamer's mind right now. What is Nintendo's plans for the rest of 2020? Aside from the mini direct in March, which didn't really reveal much in the way of first party, we know very little of what Nintendo's plans are for the remainder of the year, with rumors abound that Nintendo may not even be hosting their traditional June, or as it would normally be, E3 Direct. Due to the current crisis, it seems clear that we are not going to be getting news anytime soon. That isn't going to stop me from speculating on what we could possibly see. Today, I'm going to be discussing my thoughts on what we might see for the remainder of the year, and maybe talk a little bit about 2021 and beyond as well. So with that being said, let's begin. First up is Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, or as it should be named, Xenoblade Chronicles Remake. I mean, just look at the gameplay. It's so obviously a remake and not a remaster, so I don't know why Nintendo and Monolith Soft decided to call it that, but it is what it is. The remake is coming with some cool new additions such as a remade soundtrack, although the original soundtrack will still be included, as well as a brand new epilogue that takes place after the end of the original game. This is the only first-party game that's been announced for the rest of 2020 so far, and it's not even in the second half of the year, with its current release date being set for the end of this month on May 29th. While many are anticipating this game's release, and as someone that has never played the original but has always wanted to play it, but hasn't played it because I really don't want to play a Wii game at 480p on my 4K screen, I'll definitely be getting this game at some point, no question. However, at the end of the day, it's still just a remake and not a brand new game. However, fret not, as there is some big new content coming shortly after. I'm of course talking about Next up is Smash Ultimate, specifically Fighters Pass Volume 2, which is set to begin in June with the release of its first fighter, which will be a character from Nintendo's newest IP, ARMS. Personally, I think it's going to be either Min Min or Twintail because they're the most popular and well-known of the core ARMS cast that isn't already represented in Smash, in some other notable form. Of course, Springman is already an assist trophy, which basically automatically puts him out of the running in addition to having a Mii costume. Ribbon Girl also has a Mii costume currently, and while she is technically still on the table, I just don't see it happening. While we could possibly get someone from the extended ARMS cast like Helix or Mechanica among others, I just don't think they would make any real sense over Min Min or Twintail, at least from a popularity and it just makes sense standpoint. But ultimately, I don't really care which one we get, as I'm just glad we're getting an ARMS character in the first place, since we should have had one in the base game, to be honest. I mean, we kind of all expected it back in the days when everyone was debating whether or not the game was going to be a port or not, after the Inkling Eye reveal, but before everyone is here, that during that couple of months period where everyone was debating the death, is it going to be a port, is it going to be a Smash 4.5, is it going to be this, is it going to be that, and then there was that one leak that came out that if I can find an image of it, I'll put it on screen right now, where it's like an ARMS stage with Springman and Decidueye, I think, which ended up being confirmed fake even before the game was officially shown off for real at E3 2018 with the Everyone Is Here trailer, and of course, the rest was history. But hey, I'm just glad we're getting an ARMS character now. Yeah, the timing is really weird and awkward, and it's kind of like, why didn't Nintendo just do this earlier? But hey, better late than never, I suppose. And even if you aren't all that interested in the ARMS character, there's still 5 more fighters on the way. So that's definitely something to be looking forward to for pretty much everyone. And it's definitely going to be one of the highlights that's going to keep the Switch and fans going for quite a while. Fighters Pass Volume 2 is currently set to end in December of 2021. However, Sakurai has stated that there's a chance that the pass may be pushed back a bit, presumably to something like February of 2022. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens. The Pokémon Sword and Shield Expansion Pass marks the first time a mainline Pokémon game will be receiving new content in the form of DLC, and effectively acts as a replacement for the traditional third/enhanced version we would have gotten otherwise, which I consider to be a good thing. After all, why spend $60 when you can just spend $30 instead? And let's be real here, this DLC, at least based on what we've seen so far, probably has more content than what we would have gotten in an enhanced version anyway. This pass will contain 2 new expansions, that being Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra, which are set for release in June and fall respectively. These expansions will contain new locations, new trainers, new Pokémon, more clothing customization, and more. Despite all the controversy this game has received, most seem to be looking forward to this DLC, including me. While I'm by no means the biggest Pokemon fan on the planet anymore, it's definitely something that I'm going to be looking forward to, and something that will definitely tie me over as I'm waiting for more games to release later on in the year. So I think it's safe to say, for a lot of people, this is definitely something to be looking forward to. Well, this is awkward. I already recorded a segment where I discussed a potential new Paper Mario game coming out this year, since it's been long enough since the release of Color Splash that I figured it would be pretty likely. What I did not expect, however, was that Nintendo would just drop an announcement trailer for one out of nowhere for seemingly no reason. So yeah, Paper Mario and the Origami King, it's coming out on July 17th, and that is only 2 months away, which is pretty surprising for Nintendo to do, to just drop a trailer for a title as big as Paper Mario. And just be like, oh yeah, 2 months from now. And that's it. So yeah. However, I am not really sure how to feel about the game itself. I did enjoy Color Splash for what it was, but like the rest of the world, I of course really wanted a new Paper Mario in the style of the first 2 games, considering that all the backlash that Color Splash received, and considering that from what I can find, the game bombed financially. Although that may be also because it was released at the end of 2016, and by that point the Wii U was pretty much dead. Regardless though, that did give me a bit of hope that Intelligent Systems would reconsider what they do for future entries. However, for the most part, this trailer clearly shows to me that this game is built mostly off of the Color Splash DNA. Now, I'm not saying that they couldn't carry over some aspects from that game, such as the engine. Say what you will about Color Splash, but as a whole, that game visually looked amazing. So carrying over that engine, I'm fine with that. Just make everything else like the earlier games. I'm not going to write off the game entirely until we see more of it, but I'm also not particularly excited either. I know a good amount of people out there that are looking forward to the game, and if you are, then go you, but I'm going to stay cautiously optimistic until we see more of the game. But regardless of what the game ends up being, it will still be a new title to fill out Nintendo's largely empty post-June 2020 lineup. Makes me wonder if they'll drop some trailers for other titles out of nowhere like they did for this. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. More Wii U ports. This is simply inevitable, and something that pretty much everyone is already expecting. In fact, we've already gotten 2 Wii U ports this year already. Tokyo Mirage Sessions Encore and the Wonderful 101 Remastered, although the latter is multi-platform, but was originally a Wii U exclusive, so I'm going to count it. In fact, rumors have been circulating recently about a potential Pikmin 3 Deluxe, which I've never really considered for a port due to its perceived reliance on the gamepad, not as much as a game like Nintendo Land, but still. Beyond that, there are 2 titles that have yet to be ported that stand out as entries that just make sense to get a port on Switch, and that is Super Mario 3D World and Xenoblade Chronicles X. Both are super requested entries and are entries that many people want to see come to Switch. And while I don't think a Xenoblade export is happening this year due to Monolith's focus on Definitive Edition right now, it's something that will most likely make its way to Switch sometime in the future. Super Mario 3D World, however, now that I think is very likely for this year. In fact, it may not be the only 3D Mario coming to Switch sometime this year. 2020 marks the 35th anniversary of Super Mario Bros., and if rumors are to be believed, it looks like Nintendo has some big plans to celebrate the plumber's big milestone. According to several news sources, such as VentureBeat, Eurogamer, among others, have reported that Nintendo will be releasing a bundle containing remasters of Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and most notably to me, Super Mario Galaxy, later this year. Now this sounds awesome. People have been asking for a Sunshine Galaxy remaster especially, as far back as the Wii U. but there are two problems I have with this rumor. First is the idea that they would all be bundled together in a Super Mario All-Stars type of fashion. I'm sorry guys, but I just can't picture that. Maybe I'm just being overly pessimistic and I'd love to be wrong, but I just feel like they would charge full price for all of those separately, at least for Sunshine Galaxy. They couldn't realistically charge $60 for Mario 64, at least the original N64 version, but that's another topic altogether. Also, where's Galaxy 2? You can't bring Galaxy 1 to the Switch and not bring 2 along as well. That'd be super weird and it doesn't make any sense. That being said, there has been a recent big boost to the validity of this rumor, as the rumor also indicated that a new Paper Mario would be releasing this year as well. And as we all know now, that did end up being true. Although the part about the new game being a, quote, return to form is still up in the air, but I kind of discussed that already in the previous segment. So overall, if this rumor does pan out and we really are getting 64 Sunshine and Galaxy remastered and in the bundle, that is awesome and it will be a day one buy, no question. But I'm remaining skeptical as it still seems like a really weird rumor to me and very pie in the sky, but let's just see what happens. Let's just see what happens with that. Also, since we're talking about remasters, let's quickly mention Metroid Prime Trilogy, as recently there was another listing for it. Look, guys, we've been seeing these rumors and listings for a Metroid Prime Trilogy on Switch since 2018, and the game has yet to materialize, so I honestly wouldn't put much hope in it happening at this point. But maybe they'll release it later on when we're closer to Metroid Prime 4's launch, sometime in 2022 or whatever, but I don't know. I just kind of feel like if it hasn't happened now, it's not going to happen ever, but who knows. I'd love to be wrong. I've never played any of the Metroid Prime games, so having them remastered in 1080p on Switch would definitely be a bonus for someone like me. So we have talked about quite a few games up until this point, and naturally they are all, of course, Nintendo titles, as that is the focus of this video. However, there is one non-Nintendo game I do really want to discuss, and it's a game that's coming out on Switch. It's the sequel to one of the most critically acclaimed games of the generation, and it is by far my most anticipated title for the year so far. What is this title, you may ask? Well, I'm of course talking about Persona 5 Scramble: The Phantom Strikers. Now this game is the definition of a 180 if I've ever seen one. Back when it was announced in April 2019 during a Persona concert that happened shortly after Joker came out for Smash, people were not happy, to put it lightly. It wasn't Byleth or anything like that, but people were pretty disappointed, mainly due to the rumors heavily suggesting that P5S was going to be the long-awaited Switch port for Persona 5. However, that's not what we got, and yeah, people were pretty disappointed on the whole. I, on the other hand, was totally on board. I really enjoyed Hyrule Warriors, so a Warriors title with the P5 cast and maybe even the 3 and 4 cast as potential DLC, because Atlus would literally be crazy not to because it's literally free money. Sign me up! That being said, I still wasn't super excited for it, with Royal of course taking the spotlight and all of the hype. But I definitely had an interest in this game even when it was first announced. Fast forward to October, shortly before Royal released in Japan, and Atlus dropped a brand new trailer for Scramble, the first real trailer for the game since it was first announced. And it changed the perception of this game quite literally overnight. It looked way better than anyone was expecting. Then in January, another trailer dropped that made the game look even better. And at the very end, Atlus confirmed that this game was not just a mere spin-off, and that it was indeed the sequel to Persona 5 by showing the number 2 right before the S came in to complete the logo. Now people are starting to get really hyped, even more than they were for Royal. Now that's impressive. But there was one big problem, and that is we have, and do not know, to this day, have any idea when it's coming to the West. The game was released in February in Japan, and it's coming out in other Asian countries such as Taiwan and South Korea next month. But despite Royal being out in the West for nearly 2 months now, and Atlus having nothing else to really talk about, rip SMT5, they have also refused to say anything about Scramble's Western release for seemingly no reason. The only official anything we have gotten so far was in a survey for Royal that came out with people that bought the game. The survey is mostly what you would expect, talking about your thoughts on the game and did you think it was worth the money and etc, etc, etc. But the last question in the survey had nothing to do with Royal. Instead asking if you'd like to see Scramble come to the West. When I saw that, I thought to myself, that is the stupidest question I've ever seen. Of course we want it in the West. This isn't even the first time they've done something like this. Atlus has done several surveys in the past where they talk about, hey, do you want to see us bring X popular title to the Switch? And it's like, oh my god, does Atlus actually not pay attention to the internet? Like, yes, people want everything. They want Persona 3, 4, 5, they want all the SMTs, they want Catherine. Okay, we did get Catherine on Switch. Catherine Full Body is coming to Switch, actually in July. Maybe that's why they're waiting on Scramble, because they want to advertise that, but still it seems kind of weird because it's not Persona related. But, whatever. But yeah, I could go all day when it comes to Atlus and how they market and release their games, especially here in the West, but I'll save that for another video. My main point is, I'm really excited for Scramble, and with it being the Persona series' big debut on the Switch, following Joker and Smash and whatnot, I know a lot of people will be getting it as well. Let's just hope we don't have to wait too much longer till we get a firm Western release date. So I've covered pretty much everything that I have to say regarding Nintendo's potential 2020 lineup for the rest of the year so far. But the keen-eyed among you have probably noticed that I have omitted one particular title. One that is shrouded in mystery, one that is the sequel to what many consider to be one of the greatest games ever made, and one that is, without a shadow of a doubt, the most anticipated title for the Switch at the current moment. I think you know exactly what game I'm talking about. That's right, a video like this would not be complete if I did not discuss this title. The upcoming sequel to Breath of the Wild, or as I have most referred to it as Breath of the Wild 2, is without a doubt the most anticipated game in the Nintendo community right now. And that's not exactly a shocker. After all, it's the freaking sequel to Breath of the Wild. Up until around March, I was firmly in the camp that Breath of the Wild 2 was going to be Nintendo's big holiday title for 2020, and they were going to launch the Switch Pro alongside it because it would make a great marketing campaign, but they could be all like, hey, Breath of the Wild 2, the sequel to like the greatest game ever made, plays best on Nintendo Switch Pro, and all that stuff, right? It just makes so much sense. However, more recently, I've begun to question whether or not this is really going to happen. And no, it's not, because Nintendo has yet to give us any more information on the game, as outside of the Game Awards, no one was really expecting Nintendo to give us a new trailer before the next E3 anyway. But there's one big problem with that. There is no E3 anymore, and as stated at the beginning, it looks like there won't be a June Direct period. But that isn't even the reason why I feel more and more this title has slipped beyond 2020. And that is, of course, the pandemic, with almost every movie and several big games being delayed because of it, as well as other Nintendo projects being affected by the employees having to work from home, and they're not really set up to do that, especially apparently Japan was not particularly was not ready at all apparently for the pandemic, even more so than the rest of the world. At least that's what I've been reading. So, yeah, and of course we've had stuff like Sakurai talking about the Fighter's Pass, maybe being delayed because of it, and the fact that, Byleth came out in January and the ARMS character is not coming out till June. That's a big gap. That's the biggest gap we've had for Smash DLC in a long time. That has got to be because of the pandemic. And if DLC is being delayed because of the pandemic, there's no way that this game is not being affected by it on some level. Now, I would love to be wrong about this. I would love to be wrong, and maybe they are still going to be able to hit 2020. But I just can't. Not with the current circumstances of the world. Now, if none of this nonsense was happening, oh yeah, holiday 2020 would definitely still be happening. But now, I feel like it's gonna be pushed back to early 2021. No, not that far, like not November 2021, just like early 2021, like, February, March, April, like, around the time span that the original Breath of the Wild launched. And maybe they'll push the Switch Pro to 2021 as well, although I'll talk about the Switch Pro a little bit later on. But point is, Breath of the Wild 2, as much as I would of course love, like everyone else, for it to come out this year, because of course we really want to play that. If I know earlier I said that Scramble was my most anticipated game of this year. Well, that was under the idea that Breath of the Wild 2 is not coming out this year. Now, if Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out this year, then it easily destroys Scramble, even though I really want to play Scramble. But I will take Breath of the Wild 2 all day long over Scramble. But as it stands, I think Breath of the Wild 2 is 2021. I'd love to be proven wrong. Maybe Nintendo will just drop a new trailer tomorrow announcing that the game is coming out on December 9th, and here, pre-order the special edition and all that stuff. But as of right now, I'm under the opinion that it's going to be releasing in early 2021. The future of the Switch beyond 2020 is very much a mist-filled fog at the moment, considering we don't even know much about the 2020 lineup as it is. 2021 and beyond is even more unclear, but what we do know is a couple of things. For starters, next year there will most likely be another mainstream Pokémon title, assuming that they don't do more DLC for Sword and Shield, which will probably be the long-awaited Diamond and Pearl remakes. The Detective Pikachu sequel that everyone has forgotten about because they haven't said squat about it in like 2 years will also probably release next year as well. Yeah, you probably forgot that they're working on that, did you? But yep, there is a Detective Pikachu sequel coming to the Switch sometime, probably next year since it will probably be the right time for it. Monolith Soft is working on a new fantasy IP for the Switch that we know very little about, but that'll probably also get shown off sometime next year, as again, I kind of feel like the time will be right for it. And they're probably also working on another Xenoblade project, whether it's Xenoblade 3, Xenoblade X2, maybe something else, who knows, but we do know they're working on another Xenoblade game as well, or at least they most likely are. We know based on job listings that another 3D Mario is in the works as well. Whether it will be a sequel to Odyssey or not is a story for another time. Bayonetta 3 and Metroid Prime 4 are of course also coming eventually, but Bayonetta 3 is most certainly the one that's going to release first, with next year I definitely think being very possible, considering that the game has been in development since 2017, and considering that Platinum Games has reiterated that development's going fine, everything's going fine, like 2021, yeah, it's like 2021, that's gotta be the year, but even if it doesn't come out in 2021, it's not going to come out any later than 2022. The game will be on store shelves by 2022. There's no way it will be delayed any further than that. That would just be ridiculous. Prime 4, though. Metroid Prime 4. At this point, I think this game is going to end up being the swan song. You know, like the original Paper Mario for the N64, or Twilight Princess, or Breath of the Wild for the Wii U, where it's like the last big title for the system before we move on to the next generation console. Which probably means 2023, maybe 2024, depends on when Nintendo wants to start, going on their next system. But my assumption is that the next Nintendo console will probably be coming out in like November 2023 or like March 2024. But this is Nintendo, who knows? I know Nintendo wants the Switch to last a long time, but you can only push that hardware for so long. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. And I know that obviously 2024 is a long time from now, especially considering how long people have been waiting for Prime 4. They've been waiting for Prime 4 for like a decade, and now they've been waiting a couple years since it was first announced at that E3 several years ago. But considering that they just rebooted the game last year, and they clearly have made it very obvious that they do not want to rush this game. They want this game to be as good as Metroid Prime 4 should be. They want this game to be the best game it can be, and you know what? If they want to take their time, that's totally fine with me. And then last but not least, SMT5 is coming out sometime in 2047. Again, that goes back to Atlas and the whole, the way they market and talk about things. But as I stated before, I will probably be saving that for its own video because there's a lot I can talk about because I love Persona. But man, Atlas takes forever to announce stuff. And their Western release dates are always like 6 months later. And then, of course, all the SMT fans. I mean, rip the SMT fans for waiting this long to get anything. But point is, SMT5 is coming sometime this century. Also, while this is not game related necessarily, it's still something that's important, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, but of course a new hardware revision is most certainly on the way for Switch, which will most likely be the long-awaited, especially by me as someone that is obsessed with resolution and stuff, and that is the Switch Pro. Now, how powerful it will be, again, like other things in this video, I have kind of waned on. Originally, I was in the camp of, oh, this thing is gonna do like 1440p in Nintendo games and 1080p for like the third-party games, like basically pushing like whatever Tegra hardware is out there to the limit. But then I've scaled that back because I realized, one, this is Nintendo. They're not going to go for the most powerful Tegra no matter what anyway. Second, they want battery life to be halfway decent. And third, I don't even think there's a Tegra out there that can do that, because I went looking for Tegra hardware, and there's the Tegra X2, but that's only used in like cars and stuff. And outside of that, I can't find any other Tegras, at least not right now. So, point is, whatever the Switch Pro will be powered by, whether it's just the game's running at 1080p and it's 4K upscaling, whether the games will run at a higher resolution, whether the console itself will have a 1080p screen or not, whatever the Switch Pro ends up being, I really want a Switch Pro. I got a 4K monitor. I want a Nintendo system that can at least somewhat leverage it. I'm not expecting it to come anywhere near 4K from a resolution perspective because, one, the hardware is not there, and second, this is Nintendo we're talking about, but still. Even just 4K upscaling would be a nice feature, but again, the Switch Pro and my expectations for that is something I could save for another video. So that was my thoughts on how Nintendo's potential lineup for 2020 could look. This video took a lot longer to make than it was originally going to. I started working on this video at the end of April and originally had intended to have it out in the next week or so, but here we are at the end of May with it finally being uploaded, so that's a thing, but I guess with me that's not all that surprising. Plus, with the finals and whatnot, I had to, of course, concentrate on that and make sure that stuff was done properly first before I could finish this video. But hey, the video's done now, and regardless, I hope you guys did enjoy the video, and let me know your thoughts about Nintendo in 2020 down in the comments below. And with that being said, this is Logan59XP, and I will see you guys next time.